So David Stancombe over on YouTube asked us, since you can't import seal skin, something we discussed in the last show, did you consider making sporrans from kangaroo skin, which is extraordinarily tough? And we can certainly expand this to talk about other non-traditional kilt.
We know one. I don't know if Bert would know anything about this or not, but I'm not sure who else we know who's in Australia who knows if anybody has ever made a sporran with kangaroo pelt.
I've seen one sporran that somebody used kangaroo tail for it, and it was a bit obscene, and I think probably on purpose.
The tail?
Yes.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but
no, but for serious though.
Yeah. No, there's sporran makers in Scotland have to source animal pelts, just like anyone in that particular trade. So there's probably someone who at some point has had kangaroo pelt. I know there was at least one sporran maker in Australia like 10-15 years ago who contacted us. There's a sporran maker in South Australia I know who uses like springbok, which is an Australian animal, like similar to like a gazelle zebra.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's like stripy kind of fur.
Yeah.
So there are like different let's call them exotic
pelts,
furs or exotic pelts that you can make a sporran from. Now, most sporran makers don't have a whole lot of exotic furs, but it may be able to be done. It's just basically what they have access to. Just like any business, they want to be able to offer something that they have consistent access to in order to have a particular product line. There's nothing like having, a product that you have a bunch of people ask for and you don't have access to anymore. So can it be done? Yes. Where I would say is there are some furs that are better or worse for making sporrans from. So I know that like Highland stag, there's Highland stag in Scotland, but the fur is very hard wearing, but very thick and difficult to sew through. So they don't make many sporrans from that, and they don't like doing it that much. Versus like bovine, which has a leather of fur that is thinner and it's easy to shave and it looks nice when it's shaved down, and then a thinner layer of skin underneath it. Okay. So it depends on the individual animal whether it would be good or not.
So there's kind of a sweet spot. It's like a bell curve kind of a thing. Like there's something that might look cool, but the process of doing it would just be too much of a pain in the ass.
Yes. And or how dense and hard the fur is. So for instance, like Highland stag, it is a very, very dense fur and it's reasonably thick and the hide is tough. Versus like something like fox, which it is a poofy but it's not like super, super dense. So you can still sew through it. It's a bit, high off of the front of the sporran because of how poofy it is and because of the down that's underneath the top layer of hair.
Right.
But something,
undercoat.
Yeah, exactly. The undercoat is nice. It's thick, but it's soft versus something that's hard and wiry as well as dense.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get it. So there's no sporran makers who have standardized an exotic pelt line. Like, yes, we also do, if you have the money, we also do these special sporrans in this, and this exotic pelt. It's more of a hey, can you do this? And then they have to make special arrangements.
Not the few in Scotland that I'm aware of. There's some artisanal sporran makers, which will do like feather sporrans, like pheasant or whatever. I know Greg does, he gets the occasional rare one just to put make something and put it up on his Facebook page and have some like cool and different, but it's not something he always has ready access to. I forget the name of the company in South Australia that does, or South Africa that does sporrans, but they have springbok and a couple other ones.
So it wasn't Australia. I was about to say, I thought springbok was an African animal.
Correct.
So
if I said South Australian,
you said
I
South
actually
Australia,
meant
you meant South
African.
Africa.
Correct.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense. I didn't want to contradict you.
I appreciate it. No, I'm thinking, but for kangaroo, that's obviously more Australian.
Right.
So there's probably, and I know there was a sporran maker in Australia at one point. I don't know if they're still viable. So it's probably possible, but I wouldn't say 100% like readily accessible, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Best advice would be contact either a sporran maker or contact your favorite kilt company that has sporrans made in the UK or South Africa, and see what is available and if there are other alternatives to the normal sporran. If you want to do something a little crazy, it will probably cost you more because it's going to be a one-off. And or since they're not buying like if they're buying bovine or seal and they're buying 50, 60 pelts, that's easy and they're going to get a price on that. If they're buying one kangaroo pelt just for your sporran, or one springbok, or one insert odd animal here, then or non-traditional animal here for sporran making, then it will be more expensive. Yes.
Yep. Supply and demand.
Yeah, exactly. So hope that helps.
I think there's a sweet spot between classic pelts for sporrans and exotic, where some exotics can get a little bit much. But what do you think? If you had all the money in the world and you could have anything for your sporran, what would you choose? Shark, cheetah, loofah? Tell us in the comments what you would want as your perfect exotic sporran.